Come on.
Yes, sir, you can start.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Slowly.
Yeah.
Yes, you can start.
Yeah. Good afternoon. I am Dr. Dwarkanath, working as an endocrinologist at Apollo Hospital, Bannerghatta Road, Bangalore. Today I will be speaking on gestational diabetes, which is an important problem, and not only that, it is even increasing in its incidence, and we are seeing more and more women who are pregnant who develop diabetes, and if it is not under control, they end up in lot of complications. So as you all know, diabetes as such, type 2 diabetes is increasing in its numbers. We are seeing more and more patients with diabetes at younger ages, almost 1 or even 2 decades earlier. And the reflection of increased GDM appears to be the same what we see in pregnancy. The changing lifestyle, obesity, lack of exercise, stress, everything is causing a lot of insulin resistance, obesity, and even a pre-diabetic state like polycystic ovaries, which in future have a higher risk of developing gestational diabetes. Their numbers are increasing, and even pregnancies are nowadays at a later ages where diabetes tends to be higher. So we are coming across more and more patients. We are seeing as much as 20% of the patients of attending obstetrics and gynecology department having some sort of hyperglycemia. So this is a big problem. It can increase the risk of various complications both to the mother and the child. So it's important we know and we treat the condition so that there is a better outcome in terms of mother and child. So how do we define gestational diabetes? Gestational diabetes, we can say, is any degree of carbohydrate intolerance with recognition or onset during pregnancy. That is, any degree of hyperglycemia or minimal or more severe elevation in the blood glucose levels being recognized first time during pregnancy, it is gestational diabetes. There is another term, pre-gestational diabetes, which means it is a diabetes seen in a female who is already a diabetic even before pregnancy. Here also the problems are quite severe, but only thing is the diabetic state is there since few months or few years before the onset of pregnancy. So that should also be equally treated well. The problem with pre-gestational diabetes is it has to be planned, pregnancy has to be planned, and at the time of conception the blood glucose level should be absolutely normal, because first trimester or even first 6 to 10 weeks is the time of organogenesis, and elevated blood glucose levels at that time can give rise to congenital anomalies. So not just some metabolic problems in the fetus, but also congenital anomalies directly associated with elevated blood glucose levels. So always it should be planned. Blood glucose levels should be at the acceptable target levels, which I am going to elaborate later. HbA1c of 6.5 or less, only then it should be done. So similarly, gestational diabetes, which is diabetes or hyperglycemia seen during pregnancy, also has to be controlled so that both maternal and fetal outcome is improved. So what exactly is the pathophysiology of gestational diabetes? How does it occur? Pregnancy, as you all know, induces lot of changes in the woman. Lot of metabolic changes occur. So many hormones are released. They bring about changes. There are increased demand for oxygen, nutrients, everything. So the blood glucose level maintenance itself is a big problem, because fetus, being an obligate parasite, it keeps on drawing on the nutrients, whether the mother has got enough nutrients or not. So there is always tendency to have low sugars. In fact, a normal pregnant woman, the fasting blood sugar is about 74.5 plus or minus 16 milligrams, and peak postprandial blood glucose level is 108.7 plus or minus 16 milligram per deciliter. So it's on the always on the lower side. Mother is in a state of accelerated starvation. So mother is always starving. So at the same time, there is a release of so many hormones, and most of them increase the insulin resistance, whether it is placental hormones or other hormones produced by various glands of the mother, placental lactogen, growth hormone, progesterone, estrogens. So many hormones are produced, and all they induce increased insulin resistance. So to maintain the blood glucose levels, maternal pancreas has to produce more insulin so that the blood glucose levels are maintained. So in most of the pregnant women, this is possible. Pancreas can produce enough insulin so that blood glucose levels are maintained. But in those women who have limited pancreatic beta cell reserve, the amount of insulin produced cannot counteract the amount of insulin resistance what develops, and diabetes results. So that is the pathophysiology. So there is both increased insulin resistance and some degree of insulin deficiency. So because of this, hyperglycemia will occur in the mother, and this hyperglycemia is reflected in the fetal blood, and fetus has hyperglycemia. Fetal pancreas will respond to this hyperglycemia, produce more insulin, and there is hyperglycemia in the fetus. As we all know, insulin is a growth hormone. It causes a lot of increase in the size of various organs, and one of the important causes of macrosomia is the hyperinsulinemia that is seen in the fetus. Of course, this hyperinsulinemia and sudden release of this hyperglycemia with persisting hyperinsulinemia is cause of various other metabolic complications, which I will be elaborating later. So, as I said, there is increased risk for both mother and child. See, what are the risks that is there for gestational diabetes in mother? One, during pregnancy, there is increased chance of preeclampsia. Various causes leading to pregnancy loss. During labor, there is always chances of being subjected to induction and its attending complications. There is increased chance of cesarean section due to various causes, increased operative deliveries, and more number of labor complications, because the fetus is very fragile, but it may be macrosomic. Postpartum and beyond, of course, there is increased risk of occurrence of gestational diabetes in future pregnancies, or development of type 2 diabetes, frank overt diabetes later, and in fact almost 50% of the women will become diabetic in about 5 to 8 years. And there is more increased risk of various complications in the offspring. As I said, in the early weeks, when the period of organogenesis, lot of organs are subjected to hyperglycemia, and they show a lot of malformations. It could be in terms of central nervous system, especially spine. The spinal complications are very specific to the hyperglycemia. There can be cardiac congenital anomalies, and there may be abnormalities in the fetal programming. So the fetus is born low for gestational age or high for gestational age, or macrosomia. there is increased fat mass with increased abdominal girth of the fetus, which in turn has future metabolic effects. And most important risk which we are concerned in gestational diabetes is the neonatal complication. As soon as the birth, what are the things that can happen? One is, of course, chances of prematurity is more, attendant problems in terms of respiratory system or gastrointestinal, a lot of problems will be there. Requires neonatal intensive care and other problems. There could be perinatal asphyxia. Respiratory distress, very, very common because of the lack of maturity of the surfactant in the lung. The baby does not breathe properly and leads to infant respiratory distress syndrome is a well-known complication. Another important complication is hypoglycemia, because as I said, as soon as the fetus is expelled, the baby is born, the hyperglycemia which was there in the intrauterine this thing persists, whereas blood glucose level will fall quickly and the newborn child can go into hypoglycemia, and this is an important problem in the first few days of the child. And as we all know, the recurrent or persistent hypoglycemia can affect the central nervous system, it can affect the IQ, it can affect various organs. There can be hypocalcemia, there can be polycythemia because of the increased production of erythropoietin, and because of polycythemia there is some degree of hyperviscosity of the blood is thicker, so that some problems associated with hyperviscosity can be there. Because of polycythemia there is increased RBC lysis, there is hyperbilirubinemia to such an extent that it can affect the basal ganglia and attendant problems. There could be cardiomyopathy, and because of all these iron metabolic processes, there are low iron stores. So many complications are there, and one has to be, and all of them can be prevented by good control of the blood glucose levels, and this is very important. It is which we'll have to try to impress upon the patient. To our whole purpose of controlling the blood glucose level, monitoring and whatever, is to prevent the complication. That is very important. So, as I said, pre-gestational diabetes, it is very important. It has to be a planned pregnancy. There should be a good glycemic control to prevent congenital anomalies, and if the patient is diabetic for quite some duration, she may have developed some degree of diabetic complication in terms of retinopathy, nephropathy, or even neuropathy, various other compounds, and without screening for complication, if the patient becomes pregnant, there are chances that these diabetic complications may suddenly get worsened. That is why when the pre-gestational diabetic mother wants to become pregnant, it is preferable we screen for all the complications, retinopathy, whatever, and if any significant complications are there, it has to be treated and stabilized so that during pregnancy she will not end up in crisis. So how do we screen, how do we diagnose gestational diabetes? There was a lot of controversies with regard to whom to screen, when to screen, what week of pregnancy to screen, how to screen, and what are all the diagnostic criteria. So it's been there for quite some time. Previously there was a controversy whether the risk has to be for the screening has to be in high risk patients or universal screening. There was a lot of controversy. Each association, whether it is obstetric association, diabetic association, or neonatal, various organizations had their own recommendations. But now it is agreed, diabetes, at least in our country, we being a people of high incidence of diabetes, and pregnancy brings about a lot of changes. It is universal screening. Every pregnant woman has to be screened for hyperglycemia or diabetes. And when to screen? Now present recommendation is because we are seeing gestational diabetes at an earlier periods. Now the present recommendation is as soon as the patient comes in the first visit or at the 12th week, patient has to be screened for hyperglycemia, and if it is negative, it has to be repeated between 20 to 24 weeks, where there are peak chances of development of gestational diabetes, or in very high risk groups. For example, both parents diabetic, patient was a known PCO, polycystic ovary disease, or she had some degree of hyperglycemia even before pregnancy. In such patients, you may even screen once again at 32 to 36 weeks. So at any time, it has to be diagnosed and treated. And how to screen? What are the diagnostic criteria? So that itself, lot of problems were there. So initially, there was what is known as O'Sullivan-Mahan's criteria, which I mention it only as a historical importance, where they had glucose tolerance test with 100 gram glucose test being done, fasting 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour. But that criteria was more based on diagnosing patients who are at increased risk of developing type 2 diabetes. See, for us, it is whether the patient is diabetic or hyperglycemia is enough to affect the fetus. That diagnosis is important. So American Diabetes Association has a 2-step diagnostic criteria, where you have 50 gram glucose, oral glucose challenge test to be given. It can be given at any time irrespective of meal. As soon as the patient enters the clinic, you give 50 gram glucose, draw blood glucose after 1 hour, and if it is more than 140, it is diagnostic, or it is more suggestive of gestational diabetes, and the concerned person will go into second step, which is 100 gram oral glucose tolerance test. Nowadays, this cutoff criteria has been reduced to even 130 milligram per deciliter. This 100 gram 3 hour OGT, oral glucose tolerance test, is also called criteria of modified criteria of O'Sullivan-Mahan by Koustan, O'Mahan and Koustan, and that is 100 gram glucose 3 hour oral glucose tolerance test, where gestational diabetes we consider if fasting is more than or equal to 95, 1 hour more than 180, 2 hours more than 155, and 3 hours more than 140. This is the 4 values. Any 2 values has to be equal or more, then it is suggestive of gestational diabetes. However, further modification by Carpenter and Koustan have been done. Instead of using 100 gram, they have suggested 75 gram to be done. 75 gram 2 hour test, fasting more than or equal to 95, 2 hour more than or equal to 140 is suggestive of gestational diabetes. Initially it said 2 values has to be abnormal. Nowadays they say even 1 abnormal value is sufficient to make a diagnosis of diabetes, and now various studies have shown even more than 120 post meal, 2 hour post meal, increases the fetal risk, and our aim is to diagnose and catch those females when post meal is more than 120 and apply all measures to bring it to less than 120. Of course, WHO criteria, which caters to all the countries, developed, underdeveloped countries, has suggested 75 gram oral glucose tolerance test, blood glucose, post glucose at 2 hours. Suppose patient has more than 200, okay, it is over diabetes. More than 140, it is gestational diabetes. Between 120 to 140, it is decreased glucose tolerance of pregnancy. So this sort of so many criteria is there, and even in our country, various situations, whether it is a metropolitan city or a tier 2 city or a rural hospitals and clinics, so it is difficult. One is to ensure that patient has come in the fasting state, because they have to travel maybe longer distances to come to the clinic or hospital, and how many hours of fasting, lot of problems are there. So DIPSI criteria, diabetes in pregnancy study in India, that is the organization, has given a criteria which is very simple, one step, where patient walks into the clinic anytime irrespective of meal. She is given 75 gram glucose irrespective of meal, and if blood glucose level is more than or equal to 140, it is gestational diabetes. And in most of the studies, the post meal glucose also correlates with the corresponding at all the places, very convenient, and it is widely followed both by and when to screen. As I said, generally because of the onset of gestational diabetes very early in pregnancy, unlike what we thought that it will occur only between 24 to 28 weeks, nowadays we see more and more patients in early pregnancy. So it is recommended that in the first visit or first trimester or 12th week, whichever is earlier, a screening for hyperglycemia is done. It can, the same DIPSI criteria can be applied. If it is negative, then we may have to repeat at 24 to 28 weeks. And as I said, if some person, some female has a very strong tendency for diabetes, if the initial and the second visit does not show any incidence of hyperglycemia, then another screening at 32 to 34 weeks also can be done, so that we can rule out diabetes occurring bit later. So this is about diagnosing, screening for diabetes, gestational diabetes. Now, how do we manage gestational diabetes? Once the patient is diagnosed with gestational diabetes, it is very important we manage, achieve the target level, so that the outcome on both mother and child is properly, proper outcome is there. And it is said that management of diabetes, gestational diabetes is a team approach. That is, it involves obstetrician, diabetologist or endocrinologist, a diabetic educator, a dietitian, even the concerned midwife who is going to deliver also can be brought into the picture, or at least basic minimum of obstetrician, a diabetologist, diabetic educator and dietitian specialized in the various aspects of gestational diabetes is preferable, so that patient is well educated, and an educated patient will definitely follow all the instructions given. And the components are, one most important is patient education. Next is the medical nutrition therapy and insulin therapy. So what is the, as I pointed out, in terms of patient education, pre-pregnancy counseling itself can be done. It can be given to a high risk for females who has had both parents diabetic, or grossly obese, polycystic ovaries, altered blood glucose, impaired glucose tolerance. All those patients in this high risk group, preferably proper instructions with respect to diet, exercise, and how weight loss is important, and weight loss has a good effect on the outcome of the pregnancy, and screening for diabetic complication if the person is pre-gestational diabetes, that is important. And education of patient who has been diagnosed gestational diabetes, one first and foremost a simple but clear idea of gestational diabetes as to why it occurs and what can be done, what are the complications that are involved, and what is the need to control various problem, and why we are giving those instructions has to be well impressed upon the patient so that she is compliant. The complications involved both to the mother and child has to be properly instructed. Proper education regarding diet and exercise and why this diet is going to help her in maintaining her blood glucose levels. Then self-monitoring of blood glucose level, how to do blood glucose levels, because pregnancy involves a lot of frequent blood glucose monitoring. And education regarding hypoglycemia, how to, what is hypoglycemia, what are the symptoms, why does it occur, how to prevent, and what to do if hypoglycemia occurs. And of course, even a psychological counseling may be required for many of the patients, because either there will be depressed or the anxiety, severe degree of anxiety may be there, especially in some females. And proper counseling and measures to reduce anxiety and depression will go a long way in patient compliance. Coming to medical nutrition therapy, very, very important. As I said, a trained dietitian will be needed, because the nutritional requirements and nutritional modification is important in pregnancy, because we need a very tight control of blood glucose level. So a trained dietitian who is trained in pregnancy is important. And of course, there will be constant interaction between the patient and the dietitian throughout the pregnancy, because there are a lot of changes occur as the pregnancy progresses, and she may need a lot of guiding. So the aim of dieting is, that's why we do not call it dieting, we call it medical nutrition therapy, is because this involves providing adequate nutrition to the mother, so that the requirements of the mother and the child both are properly looked after. So if mother is not given proper, if the mother is not nourished, so there will be a lot of problems in the mother, and in child there will be low for gestational age child, or so many other problems. So our aim is to give proper nutrition in terms of macronutrients and micronutrients, promote normal weight of the child, which is what normal weight in the pregnancy, which is around 8 to 10 kgs, and avoid excess weight gain. Of course, there will be so many cultural practices which involves a lot of fat being given to the pregnant mother, and so the pregnant mother may gain too much weight, which is to be avoided. Then avoiding postprandial rise, because in pregnancy, in a gestational diabetes especially, it is the postprandial. As I said, there is accelerated starvation, so fasting or pre-meal sugars are always on the lower side. Because of the increased insulin resistance and insulin action, post-meal sugars are abnormally high. So to avoid post-meal sugar, what dietary changes can be done, how meal can be split, how adjusting the carbohydrate content in the meal can help in reduction of postprandial, all that has to be guided. Maybe some education regarding carbohydrate counting has to be given. And of course, if the patient is not gaining weight, then many times in the last trimester she may have to be admitted or put under close surveillance, so that proper nutrition is being given. So of course, calorie counting and all that has to be given, and carbohydrate content especially has to be adjusted depending on the patient's response. Especially the pregnant women have tendency for gross elevation of post-breakfast sugars, probably because of the dawn phenomenon which is going on. So in that situation, how the meal splitting or reducing carbohydrate content in the breakfast can reduce the post-breakfast blood glucose levels has to be done, or as the monitoring goes on, depending on which post-meal sugars are high, the diet can be modified. Split breakfast as I said, is very important, and dietitian needs to be under constant touch with the patient. Generally, medical nutrition therapy is given for a short period of time and try to achieve the blood glucose targets. Unlike in a normal situation or normal type 2 diabetes where we wait for quite some time, it could be 3 weeks or even 6 weeks, there is no so much time in pregnancy. So a short period of 3 days to 1 week is given for medical nutrition therapy to achieve the expected targets. If not, preferably patient is started on insulin. Insulin is the medication in pregnancy because insulin is the most well studied and the best medication in pregnancy. And the main aim is to achieve the targets, which is fasting or pre-meal sugars less than or equal to 95. Post meal, if it is 1 hour, less than 140, that is in the capillary blood, or 2 hour post meal less than 120. It could be even 1.5 hour, it could be 130. In fact, fasting plasma glucose level more than 120 or post meal more than 200, we advise medical nutrition therapy, but we will start insulin along with that. So generally, the frequency at which the glucose monitoring has to be done, depending on the patient's response and blood glucose levels. If it could be more frequent, it could be more in number, it could be 7 times a day daily, or it could be just 2 tests per day, or it could be 3 to 4 tests every third day, and it all depends on the convenience of the patient and the situation in which the patient is. And a general tendency we should know is in gestational diabetes, the post meals are more important. We tend to monitor all the post meals after each meal. And of course, what are the type of insulin we use? Human insulins, all of them, where regular insulin, NPH insulin can be used. Nowadays, in view of better pharmacokinetic action, analogs have also been used, and many of them have been approved for pregnancy. As I said, the Novorapid or Humalog have been approved. Long-acting insulin, Detamar is approved, and even basal insulin glargine is approved, or at least if the patient is on glargine even before pregnancy, then there is no need to stop glargine and it can be continued. Many physicians, they start fixed dose combination like human mixtard or human insulin 30/70 twice a day, but most of the women, the fixed dose combination will not help. We need more insulin for post meal and less insulin for basal. So a lot of problems. So multiple dose insulin is the best way, where we can monitor and adjust each insulin dose according to the response. So, and I will not go into the detail of insulin therapy. It is almost, we can say, intensive glucose control using some sort of a basal bolus therapy. That is the ideal. And aim is to, as I said, achieve a pre-meal target of less than 95, post-meal target 1 hour less than 140 or 2 hours less than 120. Oral hypoglycemic agents are still not approved by any of the organizations or FDA or any other regulatory authorities. Lot of studies have come wherein glibenclamide has been used, because glibenclamide can be gets broken down by the placenta, so it does not but studies are all small studies, needs more and more studies. Similarly, metformin is not approved if the if required may be started after 24. And insulin will be required, and the main aim is to achieve the target. So with this, with frequent monitoring, we will be able to achieve the control. But as the pregnancy progresses, the blood glucose levels also worsen, so close monitoring and adjustment of dose is necessary. When the patient enters into the labor room and goes into the labor, suppose the patient is being induced and she is allowed orally. Normal diet, if it is allowed, then the same insulin can be given. Or if patient is on very small amounts of liquid diet, depending on the monitoring levels, the dose can be reduced. Or if the patient is nil orally, it is preferable to start her on dextrose or dextrose saline with glucose, with insulin neutralization, depending on the levels, and adjust the sugars. And as soon as the placenta or the fetus is expelled, there is a sudden drop in blood glucose levels in gestational diabetics, and one has to be careful in giving the insulin doses. Patient may go into hypoglycemia. Of course, fetal evaluation is more done by the obstetricians, but we should know that ultrasonography will be done in 18 to 20 weeks. Mainly, it is called anomaly scan to look at the spine, skull, kidney, heart, where we can make out any initial hyperglycemia has caused any congenital anomalies. And once again at 20 to 24 weeks, where the condition of the heart can be studied, all the 4 chambers, any congenital cardiac anomalies can be detected. And 26th week onwards, generally a scan is done between 2 to 3 weeks once, mainly to look at the fetal growth, Leica volume, and a calculation of fetal weight. And I have told about the blood glucose control in the labor. And post-delivery, preferably there must be a well-trained pediatrician, because a lot of metabolic complications can occur, and he should be able to handle it, especially hypoglycemia, hypocalcemia, and respiratory distress. And post-delivery, most gestational diabetics do not require any medication. So if they don't require medication and the patient is discharged, she is advised to repeat oral glucose tolerance test with 75 gram glucose. The usual non-pregnant criteria is applied, and she can be labeled whether she is normal glucose tolerant or diabetic or impaired glucose tolerance, and appropriate measures in terms of diet can be given. Some small, about 1 to 2% patient may continue to remain diabetic, and they have to be treated with insulin till they stop breastfeeding. After delivery also, there should be continuous education with respect to diet, exercise, how patient can prevent weight gain or try to lose weight, and later on advice regarding monitoring of blood glucose level at least once a year, because we belong to a high risk population, and that way we can prevent future onset of gestational diabetes, prevent or at least postpone. Even education regarding the child also has to be given, how nutrition and activity, exercise has to be given to prevent obesity, because the child also has a higher risk of future diabetes. So this is what I wanted to highlight in terms of gestational diabetes, and I'll be happy if there are any questions. Thank you. there are some questions. What are the risks for the baby of a diabetic pregnant woman if left untreated? That's what, as I said, one, if the patient is pre-gestational diabetic, she is a diabetic woman becoming pregnant, the fetus is exposed to high blood glucose level from the time it is formed, that is, fertilization occurs. So, this amount of this fetus is exposed to high glucose levels if not treated properly, and the period of organogenesis, first 12 weeks, where the organs are forming from a ball of cells, it is gradually converted into various organs. There will be defective organ formation, very important, spinal complications, heart complications, kidney complications can occur. So, to prevent it, proper blood glucose level even before conception is important, and targets and HbA1c of less than 6.5 is important. And if the patient is planning for pregnancy, preferable to stop various medications which have been tested, oral hypoglycemic agents, preferable to control either with metformin and insulin only. Next, if a gestational diabetic woman, if you don't control, as I said, hyperglycemia induces lot of metabolic changes, and the important ones being the infant or immediate postpartum complications are very severe. Patient may be immature, patient may be overweight, that is more than 4.5 kgs, macrosomia, a fragile child, small for gestational age or big baby, respiratory distress because the surfactant development is not there. Then hypoglycemia is very important complication, needs close monitoring. Then other complications like hypocalcemia, erythrocytosis, severe degree of jaundice, all that complication, and all of them can be prevented by proper blood glucose levels, and it is important that patient gets educated regarding that and take proper measures to control her glucose levels. So Divya Shetty, is there any emotional disturbances which occurs due to diabetes to a pregnant woman? Yeah, definitely it is a shock. A pregnant woman, she has lot of good feelings and other things about the fetus which is inside her body, and how things will change when delivery occurs and so many things, and diagnosis of gestational diabetes is a shock definitely for them, but it is our duty to advise the patient properly so that she does not even go into any psychological disturbance. As I said, it could be either depression or it could be anxiety, and proper education regarding nutrition. Like many times a pregnant woman will be advised by non-pregnant type 2 diabetics who are being advised to undergo severe dietary restrictions, exercise and all that, which may not always apply to the pregnant woman. So many pregnant women, either on their own or on advice of their family members, they literally starve themselves so that blood glucose level comes under control. This has a very bad effect on the growing fetus, so we should impress upon them to take proper nutrition so that both mother and child gets proper nutrition. Then Vaishnavi, hello doctor, a normal healthy woman who delivers a baby 3 kgs and above, is there a chance for her to develop diabetes in future? Definitely. A overweight baby, a big baby, of course big baby definition is 4.5 kgs, but generally our Indian standard is about 2.75 to 3 kgs. So if a woman has delivered a big baby or a baby of overweight, unless it is in the family, preferable that her blood glucose levels are high during pregnancy, and future monitoring and proper advice regarding the conservative measures of preventing diabetes has to be undertaken. she has a high risk of developing future diabetes. So Swati, hello doctor, how will we come to know that woman has gestational diabetes? See, unlike in type 2 diabetes which goes on for a long time and it is diagnosed sometime, gestational diabetes, we have to proactively screen for diabetes. That's why we screen when during the first visit to the doctor, we screen at 20 to 24 weeks, we screen. So we have to see whether the blood glucose levels are abnormal and treat it. Patient will not have symptoms as in type 2 diabetes where excessive urination, thirst, all that. That is not there. By chance, if the patient develops type 1 diabetes during pregnancy, which is very, very rare, then of course symptoms may be there. But occurrence of symptoms, we should not wait. We should screen every patient for hyperglycemia or diabetes. Nikita, can diabetes in pregnancy come before the expected time? If yes, how will she know it? And can it be cured only through tablets or he has to take in? That's what. See, diabetes in pregnancy, previously it was thought it occurs between 24 to 28 weeks and screening was usually done at that time. Now, in our society, it is observed that we get gestational diabetes even in the first trimester. That's why the screening criteria has changed and appropriate measures are to be undertaken if there is gestational diabetes even in the early trimesters. But it need always be medication or insulin. Medical nutrition therapy may be sufficient in many patients. If not, of course, we need to use insulin, and generally we prefer not to use oral hypoglycemic agents. So, are there any complications involved during the confinement or delivery of the pregnant woman? Yes, definitely. As I said, uncontrolled diabetics, the baby will be big, a big baby. Many times it will be as much as 4.5 kgs or more. But it is a very fragile child. So, because of its overweight, increased weight and bigger size, the delivery complications are many. Many times patient may not have normal delivery or an assisted delivery where there may be problems like shoulder dystocia may be there. There is increased risk of cesarean sections. And after birth, as I said, hypoxia, respiratory distress, hypoglycemia, hypocalcemia, all that will be there. And it is important to know that these can be prevented by proper control of blood glucose levels. What is the main cause of diabetes in pregnant women? So, immediate main cause of diabetes in pregnant women is the occurrence of or the release of placental hormones. Placenta, for the maintenance of a fetus in the mother, which is not 100% similar to mother, definitely to prevent mother's uterus to reject the child, lot of hormones will be produced. And almost all the hormones produced by the placenta, they all are, we can say, anti-insulin in the sense they all increase the insulin resistance and decrease the action of insulin. So, mother has to produce more insulin to counteract this insulin resistance, and if the pancreas fails, it results in gestational diabetes. Of course, there are other pre-pregnancy risk factors like obesity, strong family history, stress, medication, so many other things. So they are there over and above the immediate pregnancy related, pregnancy hormone induced gestational diabetes is important. Can a diabetic woman have normal aim, normal baby? Yes, that is the aim of all these efforts. Only thing is, it needs the cooperation between the treating doctor and the patient, because the patient involvement, patient participation in the treatment is very important. So questions, so many questions. already so many are there. Okay, thank you very much for your patient hearing. I will end my talk here. Thank you. Shutaitappa, how much time?
Almost 46 minutes.